everybody, I'm Mike, and today we're putting bees in those beehives. So it has already been a very busy day. It started off with a 2.5-hour drive from my home to Clarkson, Kentucky, to the retail location of Man Lake Ag and Bee Supply in Clarkson, Kentucky. This used to be the Walter T. Kelly Company, a very well-respected name in beekeeping in this region for decades, and was acquired by Man Lake just several years ago. This is where I got my very first bees. Things have changed a bit since then, but it was overall a pretty good experience. Nothing negative to say about those folks. They've always provided me top-notch service. So here are our package bees. I got two 3-pound packages of bees. Each of these boxes contains 3 pounds of worker bees, and I chose a variety that's specifically bred to perform well in the hot, humid climate where I live, and also to be very gentle to handle since I am in a residential area. Also in this box is a can of sugar syrup that the bees will feed on for the few days that they're in here. And there's also a small cage in there containing a queen bee and a couple of her attendants. And so our next step here is to open these boxes up and get them into the hives. Now, just to start off, I've made some changes since my last video, and I want to explain what changed and why. First of all, I replaced the black plastic wax foundation with pure beeswax foundation. In my experience, I've only ever used pure wax foundation. I've never used the plastic foundation. And so for getting the bees started, I really want to stick with what I know. I don't want to experiment too much right now. So each of these boxes has 10 frames with pure beeswax foundation. There are reinforcing wires running vertically through these, and then I've got some stainless steel pins through the sides to hold them in place to keep them from sagging. Everything else is the same. You know, we have our screened bottom board and our deep hive body, our inner cover and our telescoping outer cover. And I've got a couple feeders sitting off to the side here. So these bees have been in this box for a couple of days now. It's going to rain here soon, so they're not in the best mood right now. So let's get them out of these boxes and into their new home. Now, to open up these boxes, the only thing you need is your hive tool. Everything is stapled together securely enough that it's not going to fall apart, but it also doesn't require a lot of effort to get it undone. All right, so everything's taken apart there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove one of these frames near the center. And that's to make room for the queen when we set her in there. Now, the same way I took those slats off, I'm going to just pry this cover off. And I don't know if I've addressed this before, but I typically don't wear gloves when I'm working with the bees. The only times I've ever been stung is when I've grabbed something that had a bee on it. And if I have gloves on, I can't feel the bees. Now you can see a few of the workers coming out here. This metal tab right here holds up our queen cage, and then this can contains our simple syrup. So we're going to work kind of quickly here. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take out the queen cage and just carefully lift it up. There are bees hanging on to this, so I kind of need to be gentle with it and give them time to get off. And you can't see it because it's on this other side. But in here is our queen bee with a couple of attendants. And I'm just going to knock these girls off, just like that. In the end of this cage, there's a cork. I'm going to take my hive tool and I'm just going to pry that out of there. That's not going to release the queen. What it will do is uncover the bit of queen candy or fondant that they use to close this up. But I'm going to take one of these staples and see if I can't dig that out of there. That will allow these bees to eat that candy, that fondant that's in there, and free the queen and her attendants from this cage. Now I'm going to take this queen cage and I'm just going to hang it between these frames, and I can move these together a little bit to provide some good space, some good support there. An old Mennonite fella told me the first time I went to get bees, the way you get them out of this box is just shake the far out of them. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And now these bees will start to head down in there. I'm going to brush them away from this can. And I'm going to set the can right over here beside the hive. I just want to be able to pick this up without squashing a bee. Set that right there. And these bees are going to start heading down in here. I'm going to encourage them down in by putting on the inner cover. I'll put on the outer cover. And then I'm going to take this box and set it on the ground right in front of this hive. Over the course of the rest of this day, these bees will come out of that package that's sitting on the ground, and they'll find their way into the hive. Let's get the second one going. Same principle as before. I'm going to take out one of my frames near the middle and open up this package. And I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but the air is pretty thick with bees right now. And that's typical of any time the colony has been disturbed. So, just like before, I'm going to take out this queen cage. I'm going to try to do this gently. All right. One thing I noticed is there are some drones. There is a drone right there in these packages. These queens have already been fertilized and are confirmed laying. So we pop out this cork and put the queen cage between some frames. Just hang it there between the frames. And we're going to pick up our package of bees. I'm going to turn it upside down on these frames. When I lift it up, our can of feed will come out. And we'll be able to just shake the bees out of the package into the hive, just like this. Three pounds of bees, I believe, is 8 to 10,000 honeybees. And it's getting dark. Feels like there might be some rain very close by. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to scoop these off the can so that I can pick up the can. Mm-hmm. And then our inner cover, outer cover. I'm going to put a couple feeders in here so that they have plenty of food until to get started. I'm actually going to put 2 feeders in each hive. That just gives me extra time, buys me time between having to refill the feeders. That's the only thing I gain there. And there we are, our bees are installed, and it is raining, so I'm going to head inside. Well, it's the next day, and the bees have made themselves right at home in the new hives. You can see, if you look at the larger of these 2 feeders, you can see a dark line near the base of it. That's the level of the syrup in that feeder, and it was nearly full when I put it in there, and it's nearly empty now. So I'm going to get suited up, and we're going to get these feeders filled, make sure these bees have plenty of food to keep them going as they get set up in these new hives. In a previous video, I mentioned an entrance reducer when starting a new colony. But as you can see, I've got these 2 entrance feeders in there, and that's an effective entrance reducer all by itself. So I'm not worried too much about it. Now the feed that I have here is a 1-to-1 sugar syrup. It's 1 pound of water to 1 pound of sugar. And we'll fill this feeder up. Back up, girl. There we go. And then we'll turn this over and put it back in the entrance. There are a number of different types of feeders, and I've used all of them. Division board feeders, which take the place of a frame in the hive. Hive top feeders, which sit on top and the bees crawl up through the middle of it. And these entrance feeders. And I've found that all of them work equally well. Right now, these are the feeders that I have, so they're the ones I'm going to use. I typically find that, just like anything else, the equipment that you have is usually the best equipment to use. And so again, we take the lid off, fill it up with syrup, lid back on. And you can see here, it just fills up that little trough, and the bees will empty that out, as we've seen here, in pretty short order. I'm having trouble getting this back in there, which makes me think some of these frames might have dropped out of position. So I'm going to have to open this hive up, see what's going on in there. All right, got my smoker going. And that's blowing nice, cool smoke. If I can hold my hand in front of it and not get burned, then the bees aren't going to be bothered by it much either. So I'm just going to lift up the lid and blow a few puffs of smoke under there. Just like that, and close the lid. And we'll give them just a minute. Now I want my hive tool for this. So now we'll pull this lid off. And there we can see the bees doing their thing in there. Let's give them a little more smoke. Push them down in there. I think my smoker isn't going very strong right now. Let's give that some. All right. And we'll pop this inner cover off. And I don't see anything unusual. I thought perhaps these frames on this side had dropped down off of that ledge, but everything looks fine. The bees are, they look great in there. They look like they've made themselves at home. I can see down here the bees are actually working on drawing out some of that foundation into comb so that their queen, once she's out of that cage, can begin laying eggs. Everything looks good in there so far. I'm going to close that up. And I don't want to disturb them much at all. Really hoped I wouldn't have to open that, but apparently, we had to make sure things weren't out of whack. And I'm going to push this in a little further. I'm going to reach. I see. That was catching on the screen's bottom board. That makes more sense. So I'm just going to kind of angle this upward. There we go. And now it slides right in. And let's let them do their thing. And now I'm going to do the same thing at this hive. I'm going to try to do it from the back. The bees tend to get a little agitated if you're blocking access to the front of the hive. So I'm going to stand back here. And I'll lift this feeder out. It is just about empty. All right. And just like before, pop the top off. Hive tool is very handy here. Fill that up with syrup. Put the lid back on. Make sure it's on good and secure. And then we'll sit this right back in the entrance. And try not to make a mess. There we go. Come over here and grab this other. and repeat the same process that we've done 3 times now. And that's full. Lid on, flip it over, and put it back inside. So I've got some cleanup to do here. I left some things out here yesterday when it started raining. The packages, the bees will eventually evacuate those packages entirely. Right now, there's some syrup drippings in there and such, so they'll migrate from that package into the hive over the next day or so. I'm not too worried about that. There aren't many, it's just a handful, and they'll do what they need to do there. These cans of syrup that were in the packages to feed the bees, I'm going to take these back to the house and just open them with a can opener, and they will go in my jug of syrup that I feed the bees. And then I'll gather up my tools. It's always a great idea to keep your bee yard as tidy as possible. And that's a challenge for me sometimes, but it helps out a lot. And then I've got a couple frames over here that I took out to make room for the queen cage in there that I need to take back to the house just to keep that put away cleanly. I will come back tomorrow to check on these. That'll be 48 hours after I installed them, to make sure that the queens have been released from the cage. If they haven't, I'm going to open the cage and let the queen out. And that way she can begin laying eggs, and these colonies can begin building up strength, building up their population as fast as they need to be ready for the nectar flow when the tulip poplars begin blooming. And that's 2 packages of bees collected and installed. And I hope you found this informational. I hope you found it entertaining. I would love to hear from the longtime beekeepers how you do things in your area. Drop a comment down below. Give this video a like. If you're not already subscribed, I would love to have you join us. And let's start a conversation. I'd love to hear about how different folks keep bees in different parts of the country or even different parts of the world. Let's have a conversation about how it works. I've been told that if you ask 5 beekeepers how to do something, you'll get 7 different answers. And I found that to be very true. So I would love for everybody to share, how things are, how things work, what you do in your area with the types of bees that you keep. Until next time, thanks a lot, everybody.